Hey, hey, hey. This is Tony. Tony talking trash. And tonight we're going to be talking some trash about some jazz bands from the 70s and the 80s. Now, a lot of this stuff gets a very uh, funny sideways look. They're all lumped in together. You've got your Return to Forevers, your Spyro Gyras, and some people even would put Mahavishnu in this. But I'm talking about Weather Report. I'm talking about the brainchild of Wayne Shorter and Joe Zawinul. Essentially became Zawinul, maybe a little more dominant over Shorter, but I'm a big fan of all their music, especially Shorter's. I really like Shorter's composition. I really love some of the stuff that Zawinul did in this, and I'll hope to point out along the way some special surprises here. When you're looking at Weather Report, it really was the big three to start with. Even though Airto wasn't the original band, you had Miroslav Vitas and Czechoslovakian bass player. Great jazz player, made some great albums on his own on Atlantic. I have a bunch of those, and great player. And he was essentially then replaced when it started to get a little more groove oriented by Alfonso Johnson. Drum wise, it went through some drummers to start with, and then found their way eventually into a gentleman by the name of, let's see what his name was, Ishmael Wilburn, and essentially a very strange tale in that after he got going. This is after the early incarnations of the band, but they had Herschel Dwellingham and Eric Gravatt, who really was a dig in type of drummer, had a very nice sound to his stuff, but he was one of the early ones. And then it moved on through that band we're talking about. We're talking about Tailspin, and it really made a transition. Then you ended up essentially with uh, Chester Thompson coming into the band. When Chester Thompson was in the band, you elevate the thing maybe a little bit further. I mean, Njudu was the drummer during the Leon Chancellor was a drummer during some of Tailspin and recording, and then you get into Black Market, and things really start to get interesting when Jocko enters the picture for Alfonso, and then Alex Acuna takes over on drums, and then essentially that you've got when Peter Erskine joins and replaces Alex Acuna, then you've got a very solid lineup that's really known as a classic lineup. In my opinion, I loved a lot of the stuff that the last band did too. The last band was fantastic. Omar Hakim, Victor Bailey, those two percussionists on a lot of things. But those were basically the mainstays of the band throughout the last time. So let's count these things down here. I don't want to make this thing too long. Eventually, at the end, it petered out. Wayne had his band, and then Zawinul took over with the Zawinul Syndicate, and that's exactly where we're going to start here with the Weather Report list. Let me get this thing out here. I had it going before. Some of the ones we're thinking about doing here in the future: Elvis Costello, Stevie Wonder. A little bit. We're going to do Rolling Stones with Jay. Going to have some fun here, or do some Marvin Gaye too. Man, I don't see a whole lot of things about Marvin out there and Stevie. They have pretty interesting discographies, especially both of those. Have people trying to make them what they didn't want to be. Not in this case. This is a band that burst out of Miles Davis's band and then Cannonball Adderley, and actually they met in Maynard Ferguson's band, believe it or not. But really blazed the trail. Now, a lot of this music from that period of time, as we said, is dated by the sounds of the keyboards and the sounds of the synthesizers. I urge you to listen to the notes, listen to the compositions, and things can be pretty easily sorted out here. We're going to start out with number 15. This from 1986. This is The Last Hurrah. This is not really, in my opinion, a Weather Report record. It's a Weather Report record in name only. You see Joe standing on the back of here with Wayne, but the truth of it is there's very little Wayne on this. This is basically the Zawinul Syndicate. There's guitar all over this. This is nothing. There's nothing really memorable on this record. This is okay. Face the Fire is decent. Jungle Stuff is okay. Man with the Copper Fingers, a lot of it sounds like what would come later with the Zawinul Syndicate, and people like that. Some people like that of the keyboard. To me, it was a little bit mechanized, and so not one of my favorite ones. I don't really consider a Weather Report album. This is more of a Zawinul record. Number 14, the disappointing 830 from 1979, the live record, half live. I got the hiccups here. Live record with the classic band, Jocko, Wayne, Peter Erskine, Joe. And they run through the set here, and it's very good. Really, the letdown to me is probably side 4 with 830 Brown Street, The Orphan, and Sightseeing. The Orphan's okay, probably my favorite of the three, but Brown Street's kind of disappointing. It's just really disappointing. I think the sound of it uh, kind of is a letdown. That's one thing that isn't said. There's another record that we're going to get to here very soon that is the same story there, where the actual recording and the sound of it. I think the recording of that record is part of the reason why. Even though it sold a lot, it's really not a favorite of a lot of people. Next, 1973 for number 13, Sweet Nighter. This is the one with Eric Gravett, the aforementioned Eric Gravett, who really digs in here. This is the one with Boogie Woogie Waltz, 125th Street Congress, Adios, Nonstop Hum, fantastic. Dom Ramao, and the main three here. Just the first type of magic that started. They start into the groove here, and they really dig into it, and it just develops from here. 1973, Sweet Night. I would give that a 3-star record here. Let's move on to 1978 and the aforementioned problems with production. And we got it right here with this one. This is astonishingly bad. When you hear the production on this, you hear the way that Gad's drums were like put together on some of these songs, and I mean, it just sounds like one part of the time. They don't sound like a disjointed drum sets in time. You know, Tony's great on Mr. Gone. Tony Williams knocks it out here. Punk Jazz is decent too. Pinocchio, great take on theirs. And then there's a wonderful song sung by Maurice White and the basically the folks from Earth, Wind and Fire here on Atlantic. And Jocko, from all intents and purposes, they said Jocko was a little bit going off the rails. He insisted on co-producing this, but this really, some of the production in the early keyboard songs, like the Pursuit of the Man or Pursuit of the Woman with the feathered hat, is just hard to get through. Same with River People. It's just kind of laborious. You know, with that. You know, I like it. Good record, great compositions, really bad production, shockingly bad, and got really bad reviews. And that's the one where they called and argued with Downbeat Magazine and all that stuff. Let's go to number 11, 1984's Domino Theory. This is one with the Omar Hakim, Victor Bailey Band. Fantastic. This has also Carl Anderson. I saw this tour in Washington, D.C. with my friend John. Opened up with Carl singing, Can It Be Done? That was one of the first ones, but they gave Wayne some kind of a deal there. But there's some great stuff on it. Predator's great. Blue Note Sound 3 is kind of an improv. D-flat Waltz, of course, is the main one, but my favorite of all, Swamp Cabbage. You know, most of the time when the Wayne, in the newer band, Wayne is the man with these compositions. And let's go on now to Tailspinning, which is at number 10. This is the one that came in between. This is the one in between the other records. So one right before they really busted loose into the modern age, they leaning more into the groove. Certainly, you've got Alfonso Johnson on this. Man in the green shirt here, between the thighs, funky. Batty of Freezing Fire really being the main one, but fantastic record. And this is the development of what happened from Sweet Nighter forward as they move forward here, and that was from 1975. We get into the initial one from 1983. The wonderfully underrated Procession from Weather Report. The Victor Bailey, Omar Hakim Band. Fabulous. Fabulous tracks here. The Wayne track, Plaza Rio, really good. 2 lines was the one Procession went on. But my favorite of all is the one that Hakim wrote, Molasses Run. And this is one of my first tips. If you're really looking for a great, great keyboard solo and one that will harmonically and rhythmically blow your mind, listen to the solo on Molasses Run by Zawano. It is mind blowing. I mean, all the solos on that are really good. That's a cooker. That song cooks. It's really underrated, and great record. Very percussive record. Very world record, and the debut of the final incarnation of Weather Report here. The Bailey Hakim years. And this is, what am I going to put this? What was this one? This was number, what did I say? This was number 9, I think. I don't know which one is coming. Let me count them here, guys. Let me get this straight here a second. That was number 9. I was right. Man, don't doubt yourself, Tony. I have a little bit out of order here. I changed some stuff around. Let's get to number 8. And that is going to be 1985 Sportin' Life. Miles Davis really said a couple kind things about this record. I think the song "Indiscretions" is just beautiful. You know, you start to get into the gyristics of the mechanized rhythms on that Zawinul used as the band progressed on Corner Pocket. Hot Cargo, pretty much the same thing, but then Wayne weighs in with Pearl on the half shell, and Ice Pick Willie back to that Zawinul thing. But he's starting to dominate a little bit on this. But Pearl on the half shell, man, it's one of the great ones. Face on the barroom floor. But I think as far as those songs go for Joe, this Corner Pocket and Hot Cargo, I probably like as good as that. And then there's the Confiance done by the percussion player here, Minu, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's a really good track, but it's not. The sound of it, you could tell it was going to go more programmed, and you could tell they were going to have some difficulty selling that one. But nevertheless, 1983 Procession. So now we are down to 7 records. And at number 7 is going to be the astonishing at the time, but, kind of hard to replicate the impact of it at this time. 1972's I Sing the Body Electric. Some of it live, really, really just knocking it down with Eric Gravatt Band, really the same band as Sweet Nighter. But to me, this is a lot more hits a lot more, especially the second side when they get into Directions and Dr. Honoris Causa. I really like the second side. Crystal's fantastic too. Unknown Soldiers, the Moors. I love this record. This record is the kind you put on, and it really takes you to somewhere else. And at the time, it was an organic trip. There weren't a lot of bands playing on this field. They were really. It took a while for some of the bands really to catch up to see what they were doing, because they were really working on a different type of playing. But they were working on an understanding of sound and construction, and it really broke something through. It's hard to, as we sit here today in 2024, really understand the groundbreaking impact of this record. But of all the Weather Report records, this could arguably be the most groundbreaking one that they ever released, and the one that really had the most impact on the world around them. Now, let's get to the self-titled record. Self-titled from 1982, the last one from the Magic Quartet of Jocko, Peter Erskine, and the two, and we're talking at the Weather Report. This can be funky and jazzy at times with the NYC thing, but you've got Volcano for Hire, a little bit more of a brutal, with Robert Thomas on percussion, a little bit more brutal version of one of the Zawinul, type of tracks that we just mentioned that went a little more mechanized by the time they got to the Hakeem band. But fantastic. And then you've got Dare Factor 1 where they really start up here. But When It Was Now is something else. And of course, Current Affairs, the nice ballad one. Great record, great playing from This Is the Last Hurrah from Jocko. Speechless. Fantastic. A lot of good playing on this record. Shame to see the band go away in 1982. It was kind of melancholy. For some reason, I think by that time, the time it had come out, or at least by the time I'd gotten it, I knew they were done. Now let's go to the next one called Weather Report. And number 5, the debut in 1971. This was also almost as earth-shattering, and I'd say it was earth-shattering. The only reason I put I Sing the Body Electric was maybe a little bit better known. This was the beginning of the bands with Airtoe. They really started in an acoustic way to really show. They're a little more electric by the time, obviously, I Sing the Body Electric, hence the name. But it was really an acoustic approximation of some of the same volcanic sound. They built on tones. They built on combination of tones. And this was really something else here. This was the very first band, and Alphonse Mouzon, the drummer, of course, went on did his stuff, but Waterfall, Eurydice, Milky Way, Orange Lady, Umbrellas. I've worn this record out. I've worn a couple of copies of this record out. It really comes out of the same cauldron that probably Miles Davis at the Fillmore did. That kind of sound, when you had the 2 keyboards, even though they don't have one here, Joe makes one hell of a racket and really changes the sound of the stuff. And the sound's really down to him and the way that the band are reacting to the textures that Joe really takes them through on that one. Now let's get to when it really got funky in 1974. Welcome, Alfonso Johnson. Phase 2, and here's where things got really fun. And this is when you had Ishmael Wilburn in the band, and Miroslav Vitas, and Nubian Sundance, and the majesty and wonderfulness of mysterious Traveler. And every musician that I knew at the time that was serious had this record. This was one of the ones that everybody said, you got to have this, because it was just so different. Scarlet Woman, fantastic. The title track, Jungle Book, American Tango, Alfonso Johnson, Wayne Shorter, great solos. This is when it's really started to come together. This is really the big sound. Weather Report's here. Weather Report's starting to escape the jazz clubs, and they're starting to play places a little bit bigger now with this. They're trying to attract a more urban jazz crowd, somebody that can think. Somebody told them people were ready to think, and so they went to town. That would be what I would consider 4.5 stars, Mysterious Traveler, 1974. Let's get to number 3, The Majesty of Night Passage, 1980. This is probably the peak of Jaco Pastorius playing on this, the bass playing on this, Port of Entry really being this track that is just unbelievable live. I mean, when you hear I mean, just the speed at which he's plucking and playing and the accents and stuff, belies any regular dexterous bass player. I mean, this guy has got fingers with muscles on top of muscles. It's just astonishing. I mean, the way he can play with his great sound, picking down towards the bottom bridge, he's just a strong guy. But anyway, Madagascar's on. There's 3 Views of a Secret, Fast City, which is ridiculous pace. I mean, you talk about Fast City, and aptly named song. And then, of course, Rockin' and Rhythm, they always seem to do an old jazz thing. And they did Crazy About Jazz in that self-titled one, and then they do Rockin' in Rhythm here. But Dream Clock, Night Passage, of course, the traffic. Fantastic. Right in the middle. The reports are Jaco's starting to get weird about this time, and they're starting to have some problems with him. I think a lot of it really had to do, if you follow stuff, it seemed like when Jaco, before he was doing in the band and got big and could afford drugs, and he really wasn't that interested in drugs. He was interested in playing. But we're down to the big 2, and you know what they are. And they both feature the aforementioned Jaco Pastorius. And they both are 5-star records. So what's it going to be? It's going to be number 2, of course. It's going to be 1976's Black Market. Unbelievable. Chester Thompson, Zappa fame, Genesis fame, playing drums in the band. Handling stuff like Hernando. That just sounds like a Zappa riff. It really does. But 3 Clowns, Barbary Coast, and then, of course, Cannonball for Cannonball Adderley, who's all I knew had played for. Just a beautiful, languid bass that Joe had, Joe had Jaco do. Joe called up Jaco and said, I want that Florida sound. Da-na-na-na-na. I mean, a song from Mary has that Florida sound, too, really. But this is where Alex Acuna entered the band too. And before the next record, number 1, this is, of course, Gibraltar Black Market probably would be the number 1, one of the top known Weather Report songs, probably 2 or 3. But just an absolute must-have. And this one really sound-wise does not sound that different, that much, is because there's not that much reliance as there is in the Oberheim and some of the keyboards that are the basis of number 1, the near perfect compositional record. And I know you're going to say, oh, the sound of the keyboard dates it, whatever. It dates it. But there's no record hardly in this era that you ever hear. This is 1977. 5-star all the way. I know you've heard Birdland to death. You've heard people do that. But a remark you made, followed by Teen Town, followed by Harlequin. I mean, Harlequin is, to me, is one of the most underrated pieces ever. Another great Wayne Shorter song with the way he just blows that simple melody on the sax, and Jaco just tears it to pieces, just leaving perfect space for Joe just to lay back and play piano. To me, that track, Harlequin, is the one, if you want to listen to how they should play, and the effect of Alex Acuna, who by now had taken over for Chester Thompson on drums. Legend is that he came in one time from sound check and Alex was playing drums, and Sullivan just goes, "Who the hell is that?" Started playing, and before long, when Chester said he was going to leave and take the other gig, and Alfonso Johnson left too, and so then next thing you know, you got Jocko, and I think Jocko came at the same time as Alex did, and so there was a predilection that way. And then of course you've got Padrina joining on percussion here. That adds a whole other section to the beginning of Rumba Mama, and then Palladium. And Palladium kind of overdone with the arps and the Rhodes, but something else. And then the underrated juggler, and of course Havana, which is essentially a Pastorius's masterpiece. And wow, what a band! What great players! I mean, the truth of it is, when you look at four of these players in this band, you look at Joe Zawinul, you look at Wayne Shorter, look at Jaco Pastorius, and you really look at Alex Acuna. Each of them had a tremendous impact. Acuna went a little bit more pop, had played with some more pop artists following this, but to think of the trail, the bass was never the same. The playing and the sensitivity on this record still to this day is unsurpassed. I would recommend it to anybody. It's certainly a 5-star record from 1977. So there's my counting down of the Weather Report records one more time. Okay, let's go backwards. Number 1, Heavy Weather. Number 2, Black Market. Number 3, Night Passage. Number 4, we got Mysterious Traveler. Number 5, the first Weather Report record. Number 6, Weather Report 2. Number 7, I Sing the Body Electric. Number 8, Sport and Life. Number 9, Procession. Number 10, Tail Spinning, followed by Domino Theory. And then for the last 4, 11, Mr. Gone, 12, Sweet Nighter, 8:30 at number 13, number 14, and number 15. The Zawinul Syndicate, Layden. This is this. Thanks for watching this, y'all. We'll see. Tell me what your list is, please. Tell me what you think about these records. I mean, some of the tracks on here are outstanding. We could talk about other tracks and such. We'll see what's going on. But like I say, we've got some other list programs and some other things going on. So we will check you next time. Thank you very much. See ya.